Jinhsi is her first real spectral DPS, and she is insanely strong. First, let's cover some basic stuff such as how to build her, her best weapons, her best echo set, and also her Forte priority. And once we got all that basic stuff out of the way, let's move on to some more advanced stuff such as her kit, optimizing her rotations and combos, and also her best teammates. Her own weapon is by far the best option, perfectly synergizing with her kit to nobody's surprise. However, the standard 5-star is also a very good option if you don't have her own weapon, since the passive effect also perfectly synergizes with her, since you will be using 3 casts of your resonance skill in your rotations, and resonance liberation is a substantial part of your damage. Jian's weapon, the Helios Cleaver, and Autumn Trace are okay as stat sticks, but pale in comparison to her own weapon or Lustrous Razor. Her best in slot echo set is the 5-piece Celestial Light set, but you can run a 2-piece plus 2-piece setup, mixing it with lingering tunes while you are setting up your 5-piece. As for which active echo is the best, it is hands down going to be Jue. Not only is his active ability tailor-made for Jinhsi's kit, it is also a summon echo, meaning your rotation will not be interrupted, leading to further DPS gains. For your echo main stats, you want to go for crit damage on your forecast if you have her weapon, otherwise go for crit rate. And then, depending on how much time and resources you're willing to spend hunting for energy regen substats, you can run either 2 spectral damage bonus or 1 spectral damage bonus and 1 energy regen on your 3-cost echoes. And then for the 1-cost echoes, run attack percentage. For her Forte priority, the order is going to be Forte Circuit first, Resonance Liberation second, Resonance Skill third, Intro Skill fourth, and then last but not least, Basic Attack. The reason you don't care too much about her basic attack, and why resonance skill is not a higher priority, is because ideally, you will never be in her unenhanced state while she is on field, and all her enhanced state's damage numbers rely on her Forte Circuit level. As for her Ascension passives, both of them give her a good damage boost, although the second one is kind of underwhelming honestly, since intro skill's damage isn't anything to write home about, so extra 50% to it isn't a huge boost to your overall damage output. Besides that, her stat passive nodes give her extra crit rate and attack percentage. So now that we know how to build her, since Jinhsi's kit is actually quite intricate, let's not waste any time and delve right into how it works. First, we have to take a look at the fact that she has an enhanced and an unenhanced state, and also that she has 4 different resonance skills. For the sake of simplicity, let's name them Skill 1, Skill 2, Skill 3, and Skill 4. Skill 1 you pretty much never want to use, since it shares a cooldown with Skills 2 and 4, and it doesn't actually advance your combos or your rotation in any way. Skill 2 you can gain access to either after your intro skill, after a dodge counter cancelled into her basic attack 4, or after her full basic attack chain. Ideally, you will always have Skill 2 locked and loaded after you swap her on field with an intro skill. You will know you have Skill 2 available once your resonance skill indicator starts glowing yellow. So until you get more comfortable with her kit and combos, you can just pay attention to that to know when you should fire away with those skill casts. After you use Skill 2, you enter your enhanced state, during which you gain access to Skill 3, an air dodge, and an enhanced basic attack chain. Now, in her enhanced state, she has some interesting quirks. The first is that her air dodge gets reset after each use of her basic attack, which means you can dodge cancel each of them one after the other while in the air. Although in practical application, this doesn't really help much, it's just an interesting little quirk. The second and more important one is that her basic attack chain does not get reset no matter what you do. You can weave a resonance skill cast in between any 2 of the basic attacks, you can dodge cancel in between each move, and you can even swap characters. Once you used one part of the basic attack, it is on to the next one. This is good because in order to gain access to Skill 4, you actually need to finish up all 4 parts of this basic attack chain. But do note that once you do finish all 4 parts, you lose access to Skill 3, so make sure you either start with that once you enter your enhanced state, or weave it in between any 2 of your basic attacks so that you don't lose out on the damage from it. After you get access to Skill 4 and use it, it will put your resonance skill on cooldown. This cooldown is shared with both skills 1 and 2, so your rotation and field time is basically over at this point. More importantly though, after using it, you will gain access to a buff which lets you use your outro skill even if your concerto gauge isn't full yet. This is incredibly useful for 2 reasons. The first is that even with a full combo, Jinhsi will not fully charge her concerto gauge, and the second is that every 2 rotations you will have access to a double outro skill. If you swap to another character to use her buff, she will keep her fully charged concerto gauge, which means if you swap back to her and then swap out again, she will do 2 outro skills, which is insanely strong and useful for depleting boss enemy stamina bars, leading to quick staggers. Another thing about her is that she has a passive buff, which buffs the last part of your skill 4 damage, with each stack adding some decent damage. The way these stacks get charged is that every time a type of elemental damage is dealt, and every time a coordinated attack damage is dealt, you gain 1 stack. This means if you run a team where the other 2 characters each have different elements, that will let her charge the passive buff faster. But we'll get back to this once we discuss her optimal team comps. Do note that echo skill damage does not count towards charging your buff, so running off element active echo skills sadly cannot be used as a strategy to further buff your Forte gauge gain. She also has 2 quickswappable moves in her arsenal, one of which is her enhanced basic attack 4, and the other is her regular unenhanced heavy attack. Of these 2, you will generally not use the first one for your max DPS rotation, but the second one is very good for adding a bit of extra damage while swapping her off the field both during her double outro and also during her regular rotation. Moving on to her Resonance Liberation, it is a fire and forget style big nuke ultimate. And by big nuke, I really mean it. It has some of the highest damage multipliers in the entire game. That said, she is quite energy hungry, so you're going to want to be hunting for energy regen substats if you want to make use of it every rotation, which I strongly suggest you do, since it really does do a lot of damage, almost as much as the rest of her full rotation. Generally speaking, you will need around 170 to 180 energy regen if you want super smooth rotations, but by extending her field time a bit or using Yang Yang as your sub DPS, you can get away with 150 to 160 as well. As for the full rotation, it will look like this: Intro skill, Summon Echo, Resonance skill 2, Resonance skill 3, Basic attack chain, Enhanced heavy attack, Resonance skill 4, Resonance liberation, heavy attack quick swap. And then, if you have her concerto gauge full, at this point you want to swap back to her and do another heavy attack quick swap for your second outro skill. That pretty much covers all you need to know about her kit, rotations, and combos. So now, let's wrap things up by going over her best teammates. Jinhsi's main role is that of a main DPS, and since her primary sources of damage are going to be her resonance skill as well as her resonance liberation, running her with Taochi or Yinlin as your sub DPS is going to be what you want to do. Yinlin, if you have her, is going to be her best in slot sub DPS because not only does she give you a resonance liberation damage bonus, but her coordinated attacks further let you charge your Forte gauge passive, meaning more nuke damage for your skill 4. Running Verena as your support is still going to be your best in slot option, even though technically this slows down your Forte gauge charge speed a bit. Since she shares an element with Jinhsi, the damage and attack buffs she provides are just too good when compared to Baizhi, so she wins out once again in the end. Other options you could run include Yuan Wu for both coordinated attacks, as well as an interesting stamina bar break focused team setup where his outro skill doing double stamina damage and Jinhsi getting 2 outro skills every 2 rotations means you will get uninterrupted DPS windows more often. Besides this, Jiangxin also works as a sub DPS since you get quite a nice resonance liberation damage bonus from her outro. Since you want off element teammates to charge her Forte gauge as much as possible each rotation, Spectral Rover is going to be one of the worst possible options as a sub DPS, so don't be fooled into running a mono Spectral team by the current Tower of Adversity buff. And that just about covers everything you need to know about Jinhsi. I hope you guys found the guide helpful, and if you think I missed anything, then let me know in the comments below. If you did like the video, then please leave a like and do subscribe to the channel, especially if you want to see more videos like this one. I'm Dr. Misk. Until next time, peace!